They support us so we can support you. Hear about conscious businesses that provide goods and services to our community. Through one another, we uplift and support for the greater good. Let's give a hand to our goodwill partners.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Awaken Atlanta, where we're talking about COVID. We're making people uncomfortable. We are laughing behind the break. We will get cameras in here someday so you guys can see what goes on behind the scenes here in Awaken Atlanta.
You don't want to see it.
During commercial breaks,
guys,
it's a little ridiculous.
We have John Andrew. He's here. He's a psychedelic explorer.
We're going to change it up a little bit and talk about psychedelics.
Yeah, and a guide. So, John, welcome. Welcome to Awaken Atlanta.
Thanks for having me, Tim, Shannon. It's a pleasure. And I've got to say, it is fun seeing you in the studio when the ads are on. So people should see that. I've been watching you.
Yeah. See, it's more of a show than on camera. You're like action. So we go, okay, here we go in our positions. But behind the camera, we beat each other up and say the dirtiest stuff ever.
Oh, and Shannon's so mean.
I am mean. I'm a bully. All right, John. So tell me about you. Why did you get into this? What does this even mean, a psychedelic explorer?
It's a nice way of saying I like to do drugs.
Yeah. That's where my brain
Come on, Tim. It's more than that.
Okay. Well, fill us in.
But, I mean, really, it's what it sounds like. I explore psychedelics. I have been for a while. How I got into it originally, coming up to a decade ago, I was interested in drugs, as you are normally when you're a student. When I was studying, I smoked weed. I found it interesting about how it changed how I thought and perceived. And at some point, I tried LSD with some friends. I was curious about how it could change how you think. I was aware of how the Beatles had used it, one of my all-time favorite bands. And this experience just it was incredible. It was one of the most amazing things that I'd experienced. I understood reality and perception and awareness differently. And that set me on a path of curiosity and interest with psychedelics. And since then, I've traveled a lot and I've tried a lot of different psychedelics.
Now, when I was experimenting, when I was in my youth, and there's no regulation. I mean, I take something my friend handed me, and I didn't think twice about
it.
You
know, crazy. You just take it.
That's what you did back in the day. I'm sure they still do that today.
What is it? Quaaludes?
It was a whole bunch of different things. But in your situation, John, I'm sure that was maybe not too unfamiliar. But how have you become more responsible with this process? I guess over the years.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I look back at some of those very first experiences and count myself very lucky.
Yeah, me too.
Because it could have totally gone another way. I mean, even with this first LSD experience that I had with friends, even at the start of the night, we were talking about, maybe let's go out and we can go to a club or something. We're at a friend's apartment, and we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. And we had this incredibly strong experience, at times quite challenging, when your sense of reality has big question marks raised to it and your sense of self is changing and very fluid. And we said afterwards, like, oh, thank God we didn't go out. And I count myself very lucky that I was there with two very good friends who I had known since a very young age and trusted and felt safe with. But since then, I mean, I take them a lot more seriously because I see how powerful they can be. And that power, like I saw you chatting whilst I was cooking lunch with Kerry and Alice, and they were talking about psychedelics as tools. And like any powerful tool, you got to think about how you're using it. It's like, I don't know, it's like the internet. It can be used as a great means to educate and to learn, but it can also be used as a way, as you guys know, I can tell from the show that from watching your show, it can be used to brainwash people and to like deceive people. So it's a powerful tool. It's the same as like a hammer. You can use it to build a beautiful table, but you could also use it to hit someone over the head.
Yes.
And the more powerful a tool is, the more careful you have to be with it, because the more potential there is for abuse and misuse. And that is why, because of the power of psychedelics, I have a great respect for using them with responsibility and with care, but that's also at the same time why I'm so interested in psychedelics, because I do believe they are one of, if not the most powerful tool we have as a species to move forward and to address some of the big problems that we are facing as a species at this time, and that are becoming more and more pressing by the day.
So do you think that all people, except for like the other girls were saying, maybe not with mental illnesses, do you think that everybody should try it to break free from whatever's holding them back?
Everyone has their own path. I wouldn't say it's necessary for everyone to try it. I'd say if there's a calling for you and you're curious and it's important to do your research about these things, then I'd say they're worth looking into. I'd say they're definitely worth looking into. And I would say that, in my opinion, probably the vast majority of people would have something to benefit from taking them.
Okay.
If used in a certain way.
Connect the spiritual experience and the actual drug, because I think people just who hear about this for the first time are like, these
like
guys,
me, I'm like, it kills your brain cells.
Well, it kills your brain cells. People just want to have
it actually
fun.
grows brain cells.
Oh.
Okay, there you go.
Researchers found neurogenesis. Yeah.
What?
So if you want to grow some brain cells, take psychedelics.
Oh my gosh.
So tell us, John, about how the spirituality is connected with these experiences. Because most people who've done drugs, especially kids, trust me, when you're a 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever-year-old kid, you're not thinking about, most of the times, you're not thinking about a spiritual experience. You're thinking about is rebel, control, get crazy, wow, I hallucinated, I saw this thing here. So you're thinking of this this gratification of fun and distraction. You're not thinking of a spiritual experience at all. So, I mean, how do you move people from that to understanding that this could be used for, spiritual growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like public perception, really, and how, I mean, this is great that you guys have people like me and Kerry and Alice on to talk about it, because this is really shifting the conversation. And, since Michael Pollan's book came out, this kind of thing are actually gaining a credibility as a valuable tool and as a means of personal growth. So shifting it really, I guess, happens through conversations, through discussions, and also through science is really the kind of religion of today. So, I mean, I think it's great that there's scientists doing research out there, because that really helps the cause, and that really helps to bring awareness to psychedelics, and in a way that people trust, because people trust science, and yeah, so that helps.
So they trust science. I get that part of it, but the spiritual aspect, like they were talking about, and I'm sure you talk about how they help you with, PTSD, help you with depression. But it's not just like because I think our number one problem with our healthcare industry is it doesn't bring in spirituality. It doesn't bring in, I think if you're ever going to get past an addiction, if you're ever going to get past depression or PTSD, it has to be a spiritual solution to it. I think everything is. So I'm just kind of curious to how this goes hand in hand, because I think people miss that part. They keep it more of the fun kind of experience. They don't connect the spiritual growth there.
That's a very good point, Tim. I mean, the 12-step program, one of the worldwide, programs for dealing with addiction. The founder, he actually wanted the first step to be taking LSD. Bill Wilson, wow. He had spiritual experiences, and part of the 12-step program, does have a spiritual framework, and part of that is accepting that you're part of something larger, and accepting that there are things that are out of your control, out of your individual control, and part of that is kind of letting go and accepting, and that is part of a spiritual path. And I totally agree with you. I think there is a spiritual, I mean, even in the scientific studies at Johns Hopkins, they're one of the leading research institutes in the world doing studies with psilocybin today. They found in their studies that the more complete the mystical experience was for their participants, which they measured with a questionnaire after, the greater the depth of healing that those participants received. So basically, the more spiritual their experience, the more benefit they receive. So you're bang on there, Tim. Like it is, and it's totally a flaw within the healthcare system. We don't have this holistic view, which is needed. It's all like chemistry and,
But see, time out. You're saying holistic, and you too, but LSD is not holistic. It's chemicals. How are you guys saying that? And I want to discuss the long-term effects of psychedelics.
Certainly. I mean, one thing I'll say is, on both ends, I mean, one thing, LSD derives from ergot fungus. It's a synthetically produced thing which derives from a fungus, which is from a natural thing. You know, I mean, in the research
but other
studies
things
also,
are added to it. It's like smoking weed with like coke in it. It's like, oh, but there's natural, but no, it's not, because there's other chemicals added to it.
Or heroin from opioids.
Right.
Okay, but I mean, I mean, it is produced in a lab. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it is a synthetic chemical, but it's. I would say that doesn't make it that doesn't exclude it from being part of a holistic approach.
Right. All right. Okay, that's fair enough.
But he didn't get to the long-term effects.
Long-term, yeah. Tell us the long-term effects. Like I'm sure people could abuse the psychedelic experience. By the way, I love that British the ambulance thing.
Did you hear it in the background?
I know. It's so different than from over here. So
wait, can he answer though?
Yeah, answer her question, please.
Sure. Long-term effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're microdosing often, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much science on that now. You know, I mean, we've just had resurgence with psychedelic research that's been coming back since the turn of the century, really. So there's not a lot on that. But as far as we know, these substances are some of the safest ones out there. I mean, long term, they're like non-addictive. I don't know if you've seen these charts of the most addictive substances, and on the one end you've got heroin and alcohol and tobacco, you know, two of which are legal mostly around the world, by the way, which is crazy. And then coming down onto the other end, working our way through some of these benzos and ketamine and MDMA, we come to find mushrooms least addictive substances, as with the other psychedelics, and also they're non-toxic, you know, like psilocybin, LSD. As far as we know, it's impossible to overdose on them from the toxicity of the drug. Of course, you could take too much and end up doing something silly, or get, you know, having a negative experience which is not physically damaging but which is harmful in another way. But if used carefully, they're some of the safest substances on the planet. Well,
you know, John, and in reference to what Shannon's saying too, and I think it's unfair if you put things in perspective, because what you're saying is very unique perspective, like what Alice was saying too, as well as Carrie. What here we are judging, and I know Shannon's judging all the time, reference to drugs, these psychedelics, even the chemical ones like LSD. However, why is it not? I mean, you talk about, you know, the chance, if there is a spiritual connection you could do with these type of drugs to have an opening, we deal with some depression. Why is it so often given and a normal routine like drinking alcohol every day? It's all chemicals, right? For the most part, it's been processed that way, you know, or even taking oxycodone. These are pharmaceutical drugs that are chemically based, or you know, petroleum based, and they're so rampant everywhere. And the number one death, second to death, is through treatment, through psychopharmaceutical drugs.
Sean actually brought that up.
Excellent point, Tim.
Yes, Sean said
and
that.
Thanks for coming to my aid there.
All right, you're welcome. So,
hey, I'm not that judgmental.
So, I mean, but here it is. Why do you condemn everyone drinking alcohol?
I'm not condemning.
Or taking depression medications.
I'm not condemning. I'm asking questions. I am just simply trying to educate myself and everybody else.
Okay, but it's
not a judgment.
I'm saying predominantly.
What are you guilty conscience for, huh?
I'm saying predominantly people are doing chemical drugs every day.
Right.
ADD medication,
right, but
depression
I'm saying,
medication,
LSD
anxiety medication.
is chemical.
Yes. It is, but there's a certain aspect.
So you can't. You're being a big hypocrite.
Well, I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm saying that we're so used to chemicals. All of a sudden, now you're worried about that little chemical.
No,
you know?
I'm not. I'm not worried about it. I'm just saying you can't say it's all natural when there's chemicals in it.
Okay, but you got a lot of.
Welcome to Awaken Atlanta, where we fight all the time.
So, John, you got a lot of ayahuasca. You got a little more natural mushrooms. Without the chemical aspect.
John just laughs.
But John, tell us about how hypocritical it is for people who are caught into the pharmaceutical world. Are you there? Oh, we lost you?
Sorry, I got you. Could you say again?
How hypocritical it is for people hearing this and like, oh my God, this is drugs, this is wrong. Yet they're so dependent on the pharmaceutical drugs they take every day.
Right, absolutely. I mean, there's also people self-medicating their way things, with weed and with alcohol.
Right.
But I mean, I don't really blame people to have that perspective because it's part of the cultural framework, it's part of the war on drugs that started with Nixon, Since then, there's been this huge kind of mind control program, as Graham Hancock calls it, to turn people against these things. And there's many theories and many people talking about why that is. I won't speak on that, but I will say that it's understandable, really, why, because there's a huge stigma against these things. They've been made illegal for ages. They've been written off. They haven't been taken seriously. They got a lot of they've kind of got meshed in with this hippie kind of connotations, and people who can't hold a job down, who don't wash, whatever, into these airy-fairy ideas, or all kinds of things. Generally, the consensus is that illegal drugs are bad and legal drugs are acceptable, which is kind of understandable. People accept that, but
I think it's the opposite what you're saying, John, and I think you're on something big there, and I'm so glad you had a chance to share that. I know we're running out of time here, and there's probably more we need to talk about.
John's like, what just happened? Am I high right now?
I know, but
it's like a hit and run.
I know, we're running out of time. But what you're saying is we have the belief of how pharmaceutical drugs are good and illegal drugs are bad, or at least the psychedelic drugs.
Even the drugs of sugar.
Yeah, well, yeah.
While you're on your 75th Twinkie,
well, thank you,
and you're judging somebody else. Like,
thank you, Rockefellers, and all you guys out there. But John, how can people reach you though to learn more about this? And where are you right now? Where are you calling from?
Sure, I'm in Berlin currently.
Oh, Berlin. Okay.
I'm based in Berlin. You can find me at mapsofthemind.com. I'm writing. Actually, this month I'm writing about psychedelics every day. I'm publishing for 30 days of July. So, join me for that. Otherwise, you can join me on retreat with New Moon Retreats. I'm facilitate and guide with them. So either of those places is a good place to find
I'm curious as to what goes on in a retreat. My imagination's like, oh my gosh, is it like Brave New World? That's what my brain went.
I think you need to come, Shannon. I'll give you a discount.
I'd be so scared. But thank you so much, John. We appreciate you being on. We're not going to go to break, right? We'll just go into our recap.
Right into our recap here. So much to talk about.
So, Tim
But John, thanks for coming in, John.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
good. At least you got that.
See beyond yourself.